What is going on, football fans? I'm excited to be back at it with another New York Giants training camp report. This marked the 8th training camp practice that the Giants have partaken in, and today the Giants actually went out there without the pads. It was just the helmets on, not a lot of contact, not a lot of work in the trenches, but there were a lot of encouraging things to speak on, specifically at the quarterback position, which is nice to hear, being that Daniel Jones has struggled a little bit as of late in training camp. Well, today, Daniel Jones and Eli Manning absolutely lit it up, and we're going to get into that as we get into the news and notes, and we show you a couple of clips. But before we show you the clips, before we get into the news and notes, as always, I like to go over the injury report. And there are a lot of injuries to speak on, and a lot of the names we've already been talking about throughout this camp. We, of course, will start with Darius Slayton, the 5th-round pick out of Auburn, a guy who really has an opportunity here to compete for potentially a starting position with all the injuries and potential suspensions, but he remains sidelined with that hamstring injury. And at this point, I do not expect him to play against the Jets. Has no experience, with the first-team offense, second-team offense. He has to get out there and get his timing back. So we'll see. Hopefully, get on the field sooner than later. Britton Golden remains sidelined as well, the other undrafted wide receiver with that groin injury. George Asafo-Ajayi, this year's 7th-round pick, is still out with that concussion. I believe this is his 4th practice in a row that he has missed. B.J. Goodson, I believe, is sidelined now for his 2nd straight practice, and that has been a story throughout Goodson's career. When he's on the field, he's a pretty good linebacker, especially against the run, but this guy always seems to have an injury, and it's happening here, and I expect him to potentially lose his starting job this year. I really do. I think Tay Davis or even Ryan Connolly may compete to take that middle linebacker spot from B.J. Goodson. Marcus Golden was out. They said it was a minor injury. They weren't even too specific as to what he had. Haven't heard his name a lot thus far in camp, and he's a player I'm really excited about this year, but he is a veteran coming off major injuries, so he may be taking it light in camp. They say he's ready to go. Mark McLaurin, of course, still out with that broken foot. Sam Beal was back on the injury report today with that hamstring injury. Not good news for him as he is trying to compete, obviously, with DeAndre Baker for that second cornerback spot. Grant Haley left practice early today with a shoulder or an arm injury. They weren't too specific as to what it was. He, of course, is the potential projected slot corner in a battle there with Julian Love. So not good news there for him. Wide receiver Sterling Shepard practiced, but in limited fashion in team drills, as he still has that lingering thumb injury. So without further ado, let's get into the news and notes. Show you a couple of clips here from training camp. As I said, they were without pads today. But the highlight today, and we always like to start with, is the quarterback position. Eli Manning was 13 of 17. He threw 2 touchdowns, one to Evan Ingram, the other went to Benny Fowler, who was at an unbelievable camp. But once again, a great day from Eli Manning. Granted, without the pads, but encouraging stuff, especially coming off his first poor performance, really, of all training camp the day before. Got right back on it today as he continues to flourish throughout this camp. Daniel Jones had his best practice to date. 11 of 13, 3 touchdowns. And, of course, he had that great 2-minute drill yesterday. So Daniel Jones starting to get back on the horse, starting to perform well. Really looking forward to seeing how he does against the Jets on Thursday. Now let's get into the other players. As we said, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had 2 highlight throws today, and both were deep balls. The first one was to T.J. Jones, the free agent that we picked up due to all these injuries, right down the seam. He was able to beat Julian Love down the middle on a deep throw. He also hit backup running back Paul Perkins on a 50-yard wheel route, threw it right in the breadbasket. So really encouraging stuff today out of Daniel Jones, and nice to hear some highlights there from Paul Perkins coming off his injury, trying to compete for that backup running back spot with Wayne Gallman and Rod Smith. Speaking of Rod Smith put the ball on the ground today. Not probably the best thing to do when you're trying to compete for that backup running back spot, and the guy that broke it up was Corey Ballentine. Ballentine, whether it's an interception, whether it's a forced fumble, seems to be involved in the action on the defense thus far in camp, and more encouraging things from him. To be fair, he was beat earlier in the day, early and often, by Reggie White Jr., the undrafted free agent wide receiver looking to make a spot on this roster. Reggie White actually caught a touchdown pass off the arm of Alex Tanney. So good stuff there by Reggie White Jr. trying to compete for that one of the back-end wide receiver spots on this roster. Ambada Tuwe had a nice catch earlier in practice, they said, as he hit a strike down the middle off the arm of Laletta. And the other highlight guy that I wanted to speak on today was Kenny Ladler. Kenny Ladler was an undrafted free agent safety who they said could fit that moneybacker role really well. Well, today he played really well. He played exceptional. He knocked away a deep pass from Kyle Aletta. He later came up with an interception. So really, really good stuff there by Kenny Ladler, the undrafted safety. Like to hear that. Grant Haley made a diving breakup of a short pass, but Haley hurt himself on that play. As we said earlier, he was on the injury report. He left practice. Hopefully he comes back sooner than later. In the red zone drills, Eli threw a touchdown pass to Evan Ingram, who he continues to flourish with. They really do have some chemistry here in training camp, and I think Evan Ingram is going to have a career year. I really do. I expect him to have a monster year. Evan Ingram was able to beat Ryan Conley on the play. In 7-on-7 drills, Jones threw a touchdown pass over the middle to Russell Shepard. Jones then threw another touchdown pass to backup tight end Scott Simonson, who's probably third on the depth chart but competing with C.J. Conrad. And speaking of C.J. Conrad, Jones tried to target him early and often. A pass was broken up, thrown to him by Michael Thomas, the backup safety. Conrad then later made a diving touchdown reception in the back left corner of the end zone off the arms of Alex Tanney. So C.J. Conrad continues to impress as he tries to crack that 53-man roster. But that's about it with the news and notes today. The real highlight today, of course, was the quarterback position. Eli Manning, Daniel Jones continue to play very well, and just really encouraging stuff from both of those guys. So really like what you heard today from the offense. Didn't hear much from the X-Men today. Didn't hear much from the pass rush. Ballentine made a nice play, but overall, it seemed as if the offense got the better part of the defense today. You're not going to hear much from the offensive line because they didn't have the pads on today, but good stuff today. You know, no major injuries outside of obviously the slot corner there, but overall, Grant Haley. Overall, though, the Giants pretty healthy today, and that's really what you want to hear coming out of training camp. We'll take on the Jets in a week. Cannot wait for that game where we really get to get a good view of Daniel Jones and see where he's at. But as always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.